In early Arc 5, there was a ton of emphasis placed on the importance of art and performance in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes that manifested in playing in a wild and risky manner to leave your audience at the edge of their seat. Other times, it can be because you're playing a silly or goofy card that no one would have expected, leaving your viewers in shock or laughing from the surprise. But no matter what, as a dueltainer, your job is to make people smile. This level of the fine arts was often put on full display in several of the anime's debut archetypes, from Yu-Gi-Oh's Performer Pals to Sylvio's Abyss Actors to, of course, Ali's Aquaactresses. A couple of these archetypes have actually managed to find decent success in the competitive sphere while still maintaining the aspects that made them entertaining and fun in the first place. But Aquaactresses have had no such luck in being the star of the show. Which is why today we're going to be looking at just why Aquaactress's performance might have been lacking, why they've never really received any kind of encore, and why the crowd might end up booing if you break them out in a future match. Aquaactresses can be split into three distinct categories: the Aquarium Set Pieces, your Aqua Story, and of course your main Aqua Actors. The Aquarium Set Pieces are a series of continuous spells which have some really nice theming. A good actor can definitely do a lot to make you suspend your disbelief from a performance, but having the right stage and setting does wonders to support your main cast. In this case, quite literally. Each of these spell cards boasts the ability to buff up your main performers in different ways, from increasing their attack to making them utterly unaffected by your opponent's monster effects. Their best effects are limited solely to supporting your Aqua Actresses, but most of them come with a bonus effect that can even put your supporting cast in the spotlight by providing any water monster you control with some kind of buff. And if there's ever a dramatic change of scenery caused by either you or your opponent sending your aquarium from the field to the graveyard, all of them give the chance for an aqua monster in your graveyard to make a grand and sudden re-entrance to the field, allowing for any of your stories to have a sudden twist. Currently though, Aquaactresses only has one story to tell, the tale of Urashima, but it's a doozy because these story beats serve as the deck's main archetypal interaction, although more modern Aquaactresses lists tend to go off script. Either way, both the story and stage do what they can to support the stars of the show. Your Aquaactress's monsters, a series of 3 water aqua monsters with various levels that, in the right hands, can take you pretty far, with Arowana and Tetra capable of getting you to almost any card in the strategy, with Guppy plays an important part in helping you get your best playmakers to the field. Are you ready to kick off the new year with a bang? HelloFresh's got your back. They're here to shake up your routine with nutritious and delicious recipes. And they're throwing in a sweet bonus: free breakfast for life. That's right, one tasty breakfast item included in every HelloFresh box as long as you stay subscribed. Imagine starting your day with something amazing without even leaving the house. Plus, HelloFresh makes your wellness journey so easy with their biggest menu yet. Over 50 dinner options every week and tons of market items to fit any lifestyle. Whether you're going calorie smart, protein smart, or just want something downright delicious, they've got something for you. And honestly, what sold me was how much time it saves. I love cooking, but planning meals? Not so much. With HelloFresh, everything arrives pre-portioned, fresh, and right at my door. No stress, no waste, just amazing food. So, why wait? Try HelloFresh today and start every morning right with free breakfast for life. Support the channel by clicking my link and subscribing to HelloFresh. Every purchase helps me produce more videos for you. Conceptually speaking, the intended idea behind Aquaactress as a strategy is heavy on the flavor. Your Aquaactress's monsters themselves aren't really any kind of inherent threat to your opponent, especially with their limited attack stat. But if you give them the appropriate stage, pair it with some good lighting, and set the scene, then you make even your weakest monsters act like a hard to deal with threat that's unaffected by monster effects, can't be destroyed by battle, and is gaining 600 attack that will double during the damage calculation. This enables a pretty interesting style of gameplay where your main goal is to set up these set pieces as quickly as possible, either by drawing into them or with Tetra's soft once per turn effect, so that you can sit behind a whole series of pseudo towers that your opponent is going to struggle to deal with. And this setup is especially potent if you can manage to pair end board with Aqua Story, a trap card that can act as interaction during your opponent's turn to shut off their plays with an imperm-like effect, while also permanently reducing the attack of their monster to 100, which gives you the chance to give your opponent's story the ending it deserves by providing you with a target for your Aquaactress monsters to crash into, resulting in an ocean's worth of life point damage. This makes the deck conceptually similar to the likes of early Marincess, a water-based strategy where finding a certain spell card can turn your best monster into an immovable beatstick in the right conditions, and is further backed up by a deceptively powerful trap card. Or alternatively, if you're not too interested in putting the Aquaactress cards at center stage, you can play a much smaller package in other water strategies so that Tetra can find you your favorite set piece, that you can either use as a tool for extension, if you can get access to its graveyard effect, or just as a way to strengthen your usual end board. You won't get the full benefits of the aquarium since their best effects only impact Aquaactress monsters, but you can make an already strong end board seem insurmountable by ensuring that your best pieces can't be destroyed by battle or have an extra bonus attack buff. However, despite Aquaactress theoretically providing you a ton of value, in practice, this strategy as both its own deck and as a splashable engine leaves a lot to be desired. One of the biggest issues with the cards are just how limited its monsters are doing what it wants to try to do. If you're given the right hands all of the time, you technically have the ability to unlock most of the strategy, but these kinds of hands are really specific due to Arowana being so awkward to use, since it requires a tribute to bring to the field normally, preventing it from being any kind of starter by itself. This forces you into a position where you need to have drawn Guppy alongside Arowana for it to have any real value. But Guppy also has a very similar issue where it does less than nothing by itself, since its effect is extremely reliant on you having or finding a second Aquaactress monster. The only Aquaactress that gets you anywhere without needing any assistance is Tetra, which can net you any aquarium card you want, thereby getting you one step closer to setting up your stage and fulfilling the strategy's main win condition. But even then, finding all three across the course of your combo is a huge ask. Realistically, the best you can really hope for is a 2-card combo that can find you 2 out of the 3 aquarium sets, although you need a decent chunk of extra extension if you actually want to complete the trifecta. But this brings us back to the deck's main issue. Even if you manage to get those perfect hands with all the extension in the world, even if you manage to complete the deck's main win condition, it just doesn't do enough. Sitting behind a field of unaffected monsters that your opponent can't even use the battle phase to deal with almost sounds like it should be an automatic victory. But no matter how powerful their performers appear, even the best actors in the world are just acting. And if you take away the stage, it can do a lot to break the illusion and immersion of your monsters being unaffected, which puts a huge glowing spot on your aquarium set pieces. This is made even worse by the fact that all of the powers of your aquarium cards is actually contained solely within aquarium stage. Lightning and set are fine enough stat modifiers that can make your battle phase a bit more of a threat, but compared to stage, making your monsters unaffected, your other aquariums don't really do enough to enable a second realistic game plan, with lightning being the closest by opening the door to a couple of lethal lines. But for the most part, lightning and set are essentially just glorified copies of Umi. So if you manage to get things set up, your opponent can crack all of your defenses with any kind of background removal option. And the saddest part of all of that is that you can't do anything to stop them, at least not by relying on your Aquaactress cards. If you somehow get lucky and manage to draw into Aqua Story alongside your main combo, then you have a pretty decent form of archetypal interaction that, in the right circumstances, can even put a stop to an opponent's turn outright. But only if you ever find it, because despite the deck containing guaranteed ways to find your monsters and your spell cards, Aquaactresses currently have no reliable way of finding one of its strongest pieces, putting Aqua Story in a really awkward spot of being strong, but almost not worth running because you can't find it with your Aquaactress's cards, and hard drawing it can sometimes gum up certain hands. It doesn't do anything unless you have some way of getting an Aquaactress to your grave, which, due to how inconsistent the strategy can be, isn't always a guarantee. And this lack of any real impact, as well as the deck's inconsistency, has made it so that most strategies are going to steer clear of ever trying to incorporate an Aquaactress engine of any sorts. There's no way to access the deck's best interaction, and the payoff you get for your potential end board just isn't worth it. Especially because, instead of trying to force it into your deck, you could instead be playing one of the vast seas of better engines and support that water strategies have access to instead. Or even just 4 pieces of non-engine, which will do far better job of protecting your board by preventing your opponent from getting to their outs in the first place. All of these big weaknesses and faults build up around the strategy and have made it so the deck and none of its constituent parts have ever seen any competitive play within Yu-Gi-Oh's history, other than a relatively brief stint of viability in early Duel Links. But for all its faults, there is a core idea here, and one that we can explore to see if Aquaactresses might find some footing in the modern era, and what it would need to rise to the ranks of meta success. Let's start off by looking at the deck's main boss monster, or rather the closest thing the strategy currently has to a boss monster. Aquaactress Arowana is a level 6 water aqua monster that stands at a reasonable 2000 attack and has an incredibly simple and straightforward effect. On a soft once per turn, you can use Arowana to add any Aquaactress monster, including another copy of itself, from your deck to your hand. For what it's worth, this effect is undoubtedly solid. It's a fine enough consistency option that unlocks every monster in your deck, and as a result can even link to finding your Aquarium cards if you have a way of getting Tetra to the field. But as well as this effect being pretty solid, Arowana has a hidden bonus to it. It has the highest stats out of any Aquaactress monster by a lot. This allows Arowana to benefit the most from Aquarium Lightning, which during damage calculation can bring it to a terrifying 4,000 attack. And while that's quite a ways away from potential lethal damage, it allows for Arowana to be a genuine threat against even the biggest boss monsters in the game. But for all of its utility, Arowana is seldom played in most Aquaactress lists, because by itself, Arowana doesn't represent any real value. Even if you choose to ignore Arowana's level, your search options, while appreciated, don't really cover a range of potential applications and are awkward to use since they don't have a way of bringing themselves out to the field. So you have to jump through some extra hoops to be able to actually use the effects of the Aquaactress you search, which is rarely, if ever, going to be worth the trouble if you've already used your normal summon. And this gets even worse when you consider that Arowana needs a tribute to bring it to the field via normal summon. Now, don't get it twisted, there are a myriad of ways in the modern era in which you can field in Arowana to your board, but the fact that you need to have one of these ways for it to work makes the card really bricky, as you can't rely on always having the necessary combo for it to function. The idea behind Arowana is theoretically interesting. It doesn't need to have any kind of bombastic effect to make it natively strong, since you have the Aquarium cards that turn her into a true boss monster. So Arowana's effect can be a nice bonus since you apply continuous pressure to an opponent by ensuring you always have follow-up. But the concept crumbles the moment you're playing Arowana in a duel and realize that the amount of setup required to bring it to the field while backing it up with your aquariums at the same time is almost never worth it, and you could instead be using these resources for a far better payoff. But if you really want to play Arowana, then you're likely going to need Aquaactress Guppy to bring her to the field. Like the other Aquaactress monsters, Guppy has a soft once per turn effect, which, in this instance, allows you to special summon an Aquaactress monster from your hand. In the context of Aquaactress, Guppy has solid utility that helps to hold this strategy together. Namely, other than the graveyard effects of your Aquarium cards, which are kind of hard to use in Archetype, Guppy is the only way you have of swarming the field with your Aquaactress bodies. This opens up some solid but mediocre plays by turning the likes of Arowana into a much more usable card, and it even increases the overall strength of your endborn when drawing with a Tetra by allowing you to abuse the soft once per turn status of your Aquaactress monsters. For example, if you draw Guppy with Arowana, you can normal summon Guppy to special summon Arowana from your hand, and from there you can use Arowana to add Tetra, and then link off your two Aquaactress monsters into Coral Anemone, so that you can special summon out Guppy from your graveyard and use its on-field effect again to bring out the Tetra that you search from your hand, which results in you having a link 4's worth of potential materials alongside a search for any Aquarium card. While if you start off with Guppy and Tetra, you can use Guppy in order to bring out a Tetra from your hand, use Tetra's search to grab an Aquarium, link them into Anemone, and then bring back Tetra so that you can grab another Aquarium, resulting 2/3 of the deck's win condition being fulfilled with just 2 cards. Even if you happen to draw 2 copies of Guppy, not only is that fine because it doesn't exclude summoning another copy of itself, it's actually pretty great as it's a level 2 Aqua, which you can overlay for the summon of Totally Awesome, a rank 2 Omni-Negate whose interactions will serve you way better than any Aquaactress card ever could. But even though Guppy has a surprising amount of utility for what she is, her strength is solely dependent on other Aquaactress monsters that you happen to draw, which in an archetype with so few monsters that all have mediocre effects anyway, can end up making her just feel as bricky as Arowana at times. Now, that's not to say that relying on 2 card combos is inherently a bad thing that renders a strategy unplayable. We've seen plenty of decks in the modern era do extremely well while being far more focused on needing a combination of cards instead of just one. But in the case of Aquaactress, the 2 card combo that makes Guppy work are pretty specific, don't net you any kind of real payoff for the work that you put in, and due to the limited number of monsters in the archetype, essentially requires that you go all in on the engine to guarantee that you can get any kind of value out of its effect. But if you're interested in what this strategy is capable of doing with just a single card, then your only hope is Aquaactress Tetra, who doesn't really get you very far, but is at the very least somewhat reliable. Because Tetra is a level 1 monster that, on a soft once per turn, can add any Aquarium card from your deck to your hand. There's no weird trick or gimmick to Tetra. You can easily bring it out to the field with a normal summon, it doesn't need another Aquaactress to work, and it being on field instantly facilitates any of the Aquarium cards that you can add. Although, given Tetra's terrible stat line, there's pretty much only one option. Aquarium Stage has two unique effects that make it incredibly important to find in any sort of Aquaactress strategy, so much so that in almost every circumstance it's going to be priority number one. Stage supports every water monster you control by preventing them from being destroyed by battle with any non-water monster effects, which is a pretty nice bonus to any field flooded with water bosses, by making them even more difficult to deal with than they already were. But Stage works best with Aquaactress monsters specifically, because not only does it prevent them from being destroyed by battle, but it makes every Aquaactress monster you control entirely unaffected by your opponent's monster effects. And there's no denying it, an effect like this is absurd. We've just seen how powerful these kinds of effects are in recent years with the likes of Gimmick Puppet and Tenpai, both having similar spells which blanket every one of their monsters in a towers or towers-like protection, making them astonishingly difficult to interact with and put a stop to whatever combo they're trying to do with most of the game's best hand traps, which can often turn these strategies that would have been fun to face into feeling downright unfair. And for years, Aquaactress had Stage as a pretty similar card that allows your Aquaactress monsters to go almost unaffected by any interaction, and even go so far as protecting your Aquaactress monsters from battle, bringing them close to being nigh on invincible. This should theoretically open up two different styles of gameplay for Aquaactress strategies. One in which you try to combo off as much as possible and drown your opponent in an insurmountable advantage knowing that they can't interact with you. Or a slower, more control-based game plan where you just sit behind your monsters and gradually accrue the resources you need to end the game while it's safe in the knowledge that your opponent is going to struggle to deal with even your weakest monster. But in practice, Stage simply can't do enough to carry the archetype by itself. Drawn into an early can definitely help you pop off more combo-oriented builds, but unlike Mansion of the Dreadful Dolls and Sangan Summoning, Stage isn't a consistency tool that can find you the pieces you need for your combo. It's solely just a payoff that doesn't net you any kind of combo. You see, a lot of the power contained within Mansion and Summoning is that they're not just protection, they're also consistency. And with their activation, there's an immediate fear striking to the heart of whoever they're playing against, as they become very well aware that your combo is absolutely going to result in them losing the game, and their hand traps and interaction are going to be less than useless in stopping it. So much so that sometimes, if you show that you have combo, people are just going to scoop on the spot. But in the case of Aquaactress Stage, your opponent has nothing to fear. Even disregarding the deck struggle with consistency, the best Aquaactress hands are only capable of ending on 1 to 2 interactions at most. Interactions that won't even be protected by Stage's best effect, and that can be easily played through or baited by almost any competent competitive strategy. And trying to play with Stage as a more grindy win condition simply doesn't work in the modern era. Even if you ignore the fact that a Raigeki or Dark Hole alone would be enough to wipe away most Aquaactress fields, even with Stage set in place, since it doesn't protect you from back row. Your opponent simply has the option of getting rid of it before they have to deal with your monsters. They don't even need to draw into back row removal, as with the likes of SB9 to Nightmare Phoenix being so readily available in people's extra decks, almost any 2 monsters in the game can act as a solution for your supposedly unoutable board. And with the Stage destroyed, your Aquaactress monsters might as well prepare for their new role as sushi. Now, to be fair to Stage, there is at the very least a disincentive for your opponent if they get rid of it, and it's an effect that's shared by every Aquarium card. Because if any of them are sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to special summon out any Aqua monster from your grave in exchange for being locked into only special summoning Aqua monsters for the rest of the turn. And to be completely fair, this effect has the potential to be something that your opponent has to worry about in the right circumstances, because it's not limited to solely supporting your Aquaactress monsters, and could end up reviving the likes of Totally Awesome or another Aqua boss monster that could end up being a thorn in your opponent's side. Although this requires that you have the ability to set up your graveyard in such a way. And even if you do, relying on your opponent to trigger this effect is folly, especially in the modern era where there are tons of cards that can remove back row from the field without sending it to the grave. As a result, the only realistic way that you can get any value out of this effect of any of your Aquarium cards is if you're willing to get rid of them yourself, which is unfortunately pretty hard to do in a deck like Aquaactress, where you have no way to destroy your own stages to take advantage of this effect without relying on non-archetypal tools. But in its current form, you're usually going to be using the Aquarium cards for their first effects. And while Stage is a strong start, the others leave something to be desired. For example, Aquarium Set's unique effects are solely stat buffs. Aquarium Set can support any water strategy by boosting the stats of water monsters you control by 300, and supports Aquaactress monsters specifically by boosting their stats by a further 300. resulting in a total of a 600 attack and defense buff for any Aquaactress monster you control. Now, in a strategy where the stats of all of your monsters are so low, any kind of stat increase is going to be seen as somewhat valuable for making your monsters appear more like legitimate threats that can either beat over your opponent's beatsticks or try to end the game outright. But in all honesty, the stat gain of Aquarium Set is pitifully low, as it only brings up your best beatstick to 2600 attack, while the likes of Guppy and Tetra are only brought to 1200 and 900 attack respectively, all of which hardly is enough to compare to the stats of even some of the game's oldest monsters. In fact, speaking of the game's older cards, there's no real point in trying to use a card like Aquarium Set generically, when you'd honestly be better served by the likes of an Umiyoruka, a card printed in 2002 that provides a much stronger attack buff for your water monsters, albeit at a relatively small cost of losing 400 defense. Sat is without a doubt the worst of the three aquariums, because while Stage can at least be annoying enough for your opponent to go out of their way to deal with it, Sat is barely ever going to have any kind of impact on the game. It's a fine buff and one that can occasionally help out, but it's certainly not enough to strike any fear into an opponent's field, with it being close to necessary that you pair Sat with Lightning for it to change the tide of the duel in your favor. Because Aquarium Lightning's unique effect, while not incredible by any means, is just fine and can even enable some lethal lines, as if an Aquaactress monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you actually get to double the attack and defense of your Aquaactress monster during damage calculation, but you can only ever control one Aquarium Lightning at a time, so you can't stack this double attack multiple times. Admittedly though, even with both Set and Lightning on the field, most of your Aquaactress monsters still aren't reaching to impressive attack stats, with Tetra getting to 1800 and Guppy managing to reach 2400 during damage calculation. Where Lightning can potentially shine, however, is in combination with other cards. Take Arowana for example. Even without Set on field, it can reach an impressive 4000 attack. With Lightning and alongside Set, she can go even further beyond to reach a staggering 5200 attack during damage calculation, enough to beat even the likes of the game's strongest beatsticks, from Chaos Max to Quintet Magician. Now earlier we did discuss how generally awkward Arowana is to use, which is why a lot of Aquaactress strategies have to cut her. But there is still a way for you to get some real damage in with Aquarium Lightning, and that's by buffing up your smaller Aquaactress monsters with the field spell Wetlands, which increases their attack by 1200 points. This doesn't work with Arowana due to her being a high level, but it does mean that even Tetra can represent an absurd 3000 attack with Lightning and Wetlands on field. And Guppy can go even further beyond to reach 3600 attack, enough to crash with a Super Quantal Mech King Great Magnus. Now, given that you need some pretty specific combos, Lightning isn't always going to be as useful as you'd hope, and is why modern Aquaactress strategies will usually only play it as a 1 of or 2 of for most decks, with them choosing to rely on Stage as the aquarium of choice, while Lightning and Set are both alternative options that can be grabbed only when you know that they're going to be useful. But there is an idea behind Lightning that can definitely be expanded on. If future support were to make Arowana easier to use, give you another high attack boss monster, or just strengthen your regular Aquaactresses a bit more, it could open up the deck to having a frightening battle phase, similar to Tenpai, with Lightning letting you OTK by crashing into an opponent's low attack monster. And the interesting is, there's actually a way to ensure that whatever monster your opponent summons to the field will have next to no attack to more easily enable Lightning within the archetype already. Aqua Story Urashima is currently the deck's only trap card, and it reads quite strong. You can activate it so long as you have an Aquaactress in your graveyard to target a monster on field and negate its effects until the end of the turn, essentially making it an archetypal infinite impermanence that you can use as a genuine and impactful piece of interaction during your opponent's turn. And that's not all, because Urashima has a dual purpose, since it can not only negate effects, but in doing so, will also temporarily bring the attack of the monster it targeted down to 100, while making it unaffected by your opponent's card effects, which either gives you a prime target for your monsters to swing into with Aquarium Lightning, setting up for maximum damage if you have Urashima for your own turn, or a way to punish your opponent for foolishly thinking they can get over your Aquaactress monsters with a surprise activation in the damage step, allowing you to dig into a huge chunk of their life points. By all accounts, Aqua Story should be an incredible card for the deck. It strengthens both Aquarium Lightning and Set by lowering the attack of your opponent's monsters, while also giving you a solid payoff on Stage's protection, a payoff that you should be able to offensively use to put a stop to your opponent's plays, or to protect your aquariums from their potential answers. But there's just one small issue with the card. It's not an aquarium card, which makes it entirely unsearchable with the tools that the deck currently has available to it. And because you can't grab it when you need it, You have to hard draw it and hope that you have a hand usable with Aquaactress monsters to allow for this conditional negate to activate at all, where you can instead just be playing Infinite Impermanence, Effect Veiler, or even Forbidden Droplet to do virtually the same thing without the same needless conditions. Its effect is absolutely great, but you only really want to see Urashima when you know you'll have a chance to activate it, which forces you to either play it at 3 and risk gumming up some hands, or drop it from the deck entirely because of its lack of searchability. So, with all that being said, is it right to call Aquaactress a failed strategy? Unfortunately, the answer is absolutely. The deck is held together by a set of limited plays that just barely function in the right hands, and in the wrong ones, the deck struggles to do much of anything at all. Even if everything goes as planned, the payoff it provides is both unremarkable and unreliable, with it easily defeated by modern tools that you'll rarely have ways of stopping, since your best interaction is entirely unsearchable. And that's really sad because the deck is brimming with potential already. Every monster they have is a soft once per turn. That, with the right support facilitating it, could be used multiple times over the course of a turn. Aquarium Stage has the potential to be a broken card if you can set it with any kind of threatening combo. In fact, all of the Aquarium cards have the chance to be really strong if there was any way for the deck to facilitate their interesting graveyard effects to help you swarm the field, and could give the deck some real legs, or rather fins, to stand on. Even just having some way of finding and facilitating Urashima would put the strategy 2,000 leagues above where it is now, by giving a way to actually interact with an opponent, and could even encourage some genuine experimentation with the cards as splashable engines for water decks that want to try to use their payoff to their advantage. But as it stands right now, Aquaactress is missing a lot, and is a ways from even scrapping the edges of competitive viability. Its plays are far too clunky, need too much investment, and they're lacking any kind of reward for choosing to play them in your strategy, and they're going to need a huge wave of support to make that viable. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Go to HelloFresh_TheDuelLogs and use my code DuelJan10 and receive 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. 1 free breakfast item per box while subscription is active if you're in the US. The link and code are valid in all countries, and respective local discounts will apply.